In the early hours of the morning, while people peacefully slept in their beds, one woman would find herself in the most unimaginable scenario of her life. This would be a battle not just for her life, but for her very essence, testing her strength, resilience, and the depths of her determination. This is the story of Alison Botha. What's up, everybody?
What's up? She says.
Welcome back to Tell Me Darling, our true crime podcast, where me and Phil do true crime stuff.
That's true.
We are running super behind today. It's Tuesday. Podcast drops tomorrow. So it's going to be a quick turnaround. I can hear someone whippersnipping.
It is what it is. We can't control that. Control the controllables.
Oh my God.
That's a good one.
Anyway, what's been going on? Not a lot. My birthday weekend, we just finished up. I am 32 years old now. Everyone cry for me.
Yeah, you had your birthday party. It was a great party. You're 32. You are looking good for 32.
Oh my fucking God.
And I'm sure you're feeling good for 32 as well.
Thanks.
We had a great night singing karaoke into the early hours of the morning. Good friends, good company, good drinks, good fire. It was all around. It was a good night, babe.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was your best birthday yet.
Were you at my 30th?
Yeah, I was at your 30th, but I had more fun at this birthday at 32.
Yeah.
So
it was a good night.
Yeah, it was a good night.
It was definitely a good night. Are you ready?
Tell me, darling.
The year was 1994. And Alison Botha was a 27-year-old woman living in Port Elizabeth, South Africa. She enjoyed traveling. She had recently returned from a 4-year overseas trip, actually. She enjoyed hanging out with her friends and just living a relatively easy, slow-paced lifestyle. Alison didn't really have any aspirations and no great career plans. She was just kind of happy, chilling and doing her own thing. It was the 18th of December and it was a perfect summer's day in Port Elizabeth. Alison had spent the day at the beach with her friends and ended the day back at her place playing games and eating pizza. As the evening came to an end, a little around 3 a.m, Alison offers to drive one of her friends home to save her the walk. So she does that and then she comes back home. However, when she returns to her apartment block, her usual car park had already been taken. So she continues on and manages to find a park a little further down the road. She pulls into the park, and before she even has a chance to open her car door, Alison feels a knife to her throat. It's being held by a man. The man is white and appears to be in his mid-20s. He has dirty blonde hair and he is alone. He says to Alison, "Move over or I'll kill you."
Where is it? He was hiding in her car?
No, she pulled into this car spot. Her window was down.
Okay, yeah.
Turns off the car, knife to her throat.
All right.
He says to Alison, "Move over or I'll kill you." So Alison slides over into the passenger seat and the man hops into the driver's seat. He then tells Alison that he didn't want to hurt her. He just needs to borrow her car for about an hour.
That's what old mate said last week. He doesn't want to hurt them.
He did say that.
And then he killed them.
He did kill them. Yeah.
All right. Where'd they go to?
You're jumping ahead a bit.
All right.
Alison looks down and notices her car doors are still unlocked, and for a split second, she considers jumping out, but she doesn't want to believe the worst is going to happen. She thought maybe he did just need to use her car, and once he was finished, he would just leave her alone, so she doesn't move.
She should have gapped it right then.
You don't know what you would do in that situation.
If someone jumped in my car with a knife...
You are a 6-foot, strongly built man.
First of all, I grab their hand, I put the window up, break in their hand, drive off with them hanging out the window, drive close to a pole, they hit the pole, game over.
This was 1994, So we have the old wind-up windows that don't go up fast.
Some cars
Also,
back
again,
then,
you are a 6-foot strong-build male, not a female that's small. Oh, fuck up, fucking idiot.
Okay, yeah, all right. So she's moved over. She had a chance to escape, but she didn't see.
She considered. She noticed that the door was still unlocked. She thought about jumping out. He's still a man with a knife.
Mm-hmm.
So they drive off.
Yep.
The man then begins to small talk with Alison. He tells her his name is Clinton and then asks her if she has a boyfriend. And this sort of made Alison feel more comfortable during the drive. Eventually he pulls over and Alison's comfort quickly turns to dread when she realizes a second man is getting into the vehicle.
What?
Still frozen in the front seat, she catches a glimpse of him in the rearview mirror. Their eyes meet, and for the first time Alison realizes that she might not be going home tonight. There was nothing. All she could see was the cold look in his eyes. There was no warmth, only darkness. The three of them drive out of the city, away from any other people, any other cars, any streetlights. They drive into the darkness, leaving all sense of hope for Alison behind. The car finally came to a stop in an alcove. The ground was mostly dirt. There was nothing around. It was silent. The man who called himself Clinton turns off the car and turns to Alison and he asks her, "Are you going to fight?" And she's thinking to herself, do I fight? I'm not sure if I even know how to fight. And it's just her against these two men in the middle of nowhere. So she's like, what are my chances here?
She says that, or she's probably thinking that to herself?
She's thinking this. Like, even if she does fight.
What time of day is this again?
This is just after 3 a.m.
Oh, so it's early hours in the morning.
She had the big day at the beach, had a games night with her friends, offered to drive her friend home, came back.
Damn.
The man in the back seat gets out of the car and Clinton forces Alison into the back seat. He forces her to perform oral sex on him and then he does the same to her while asking her things like, does your boyfriend do this to you? Do you like it? And other really degrading things. Then he kisses her and then he rapes her. So during the rape, Alison actually orgasms. She finishes. And this experience is actually called hyperarousal, and it's the body's reaction to what's happening to them. It's a way of the body trying to protect itself. It's kind of like a fight or flight response, like from your body, and it's not something that she has control over, and it like doesn't at all mean that she was enjoying the assault. It's just like her body's way of trying to protect her from what's happening. But she hates that this happens to her. Like in her mind, she feels betrayed by her own body because in the moment she's like, doesn't understand why it's happening. Like she isn't enjoying this at all. She's scared, like it's hurting her, like this is her worst nightmare. But I just thought that was like an interesting fact because I've heard that on SVU before. Like I know that's a TV show, but it's
wow.
It's like a thing.
It's different.
Yeah. So once the rape is over, the man who was originally in the back seat comes to the window and says, "Friends." And Alison hears this, and that's when she realizes that Clinton's name isn't really Clinton, it's Franz. Franz says to the man, "Tiaz, do you also want to have sex with the lovely lady?" So Tiaz is the name of the second man. They are South African, so they say it a bit different than I'm slaughtering their names right now.
I thought maybe Tiaz was Mexican. Sounds like a Mexican name.
No, they're South African. When they say it, it sounds...
Yeah, in that South African accent.
It's like Tiens or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so Franz says to him, "Do you also want to have sex with the lovely lady?" And he says, "No, I want to fuck the bitch." And then Franz is like, after he just finishes raping her, "No, you can't talk to her like that. She's a lady. You must speak properly to her."
What the fuck?
So Tiaz gets in the car and before she knew it, he had his hands wrapped around her throat. And I'm not actually sure whether or not he does rape her. But anyway, because the next thing that she remembers, or suddenly she feels like them just start stabbing her in her stomach, in her pubic area. They stab Alison 37 times in those areas. Then Tiaz slits Alison's throat and begins slashing away at her throat. Franz pushes him out of the way and he begins slashing at Alison's throat.
She remembers this? Or this is what's happened?
So she remembers Tiaz putting hands around her throat.
Passes out,
and then,
maybe?
the next thing, like, it's just she can see them. She can't feel it. She can see them.
Wow.
So they do this about 17 times. Then the two of the men get back into Alison's car, leaving her naked, lifeless body bleeding out in the dirt. As Alison lay there covered in her own blood, she can hear a noise, a strange, heavy breathing, gargling, and that's when she realizes that she is breathing out of the now giant hole in her neck. Her windpipe is exposed, and that's how she's managing to breathe right now. And she becomes really sad because in this moment she's like, this is it. Like, I'm going to die here. And as Alison lay there, she thought to herself, like, this can't be my ending. I want to live my life better. I want to see my family again. I don't want to die here. And she decided that she was going to fight. Now, Alison knows there's a very good chance that she's going to die here. She's in bad shape and she doesn't want this to happen to any other women again. She wants people to know that she tried to survive, that she fought for her life after her attack. So she lifts her hand and using her fingers in the dirt, she writes Franz and Tians.
Mm-hmm.
She writes their names in the dirt. So
That's
she wanted
smart.
people to, she wanted people to know who did this to her and if she didn't make it out of here. And then she wrote, I love you, Mum.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. So as she's trying to muster the strength to figure out what she's doing next, she feels something wet near her legs. So she looks down and she realizes that her intestines are hanging out of her body.
Whoa.
Her stomach is completely cut open. She's been disemboweled.
She's proper messed up at this stage.
Yes, she's open. And so she sees like her denim shirt that she was wearing nearby and she grabs it and she uses that to kind of pull everything together and just hold it in one spot. So she does that with one hand and then with her other hand she like attempts to kind of like start army crawling through the dirt. There's like bits of ash and bits of broken glass on the ground and it's not long before she's like, this isn't going to work. I'm not going to get out of here if I keep crawling like this. So miraculously, she manages to stand up and everything goes black. But she can still feel and she's standing there. So she's like, what's happening? So she puts her hand up to her throat and her hand completely like goes through her neck and they had completely severed her throat. And the reason everything is now black is because Alison's head is hanging backwards off of her neck between her shoulder blades.
No way.
Yes. She's like her head is hanging.
How's she alive?
Miracle. So she grabs like herself by the hair
What the
and
fuck?
she basically yanks her head up so that she can see and she starts walking. She uses every bit of strength and fight that she has and makes it all the way back to the road before finally collapsing. She's still awake, but she is exhausted. And by the time she hits the road, she's like, at least someone's going to find me.
Damn, I'm covering my eyes like I can see it.
I know.
I can't. It's fucked up.
You can't imagine it, can you?
No,
Like,
well,
you can't
I'm
fathom.
imagining it and I don't want to imagine
It's exactly like what you're imagining.
Fuck.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
Like wild.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so she makes it to a road?
Yep.
Okay.
Shall I keep going?
Yeah.
Not long after Alison makes it to the road, she spots headlights in the distance. A car is coming towards her. And at first, she's like, oh my goodness, a car. But then she starts to think, oh my God, what if that's France and Tion's and they're coming back?
Mm-hmm.
The car slows down in front of her and sits for about 20 to 30 seconds. And then it just drives off, leaving her there.
What the fuck?
Yep, they didn't get out.
Obviously,
Which-
she's too messed up to remember.
She's on the ground.
Yeah.
And like, I try to like imagine if you drove up upon that scene, whether you would stop or not. Like, it's so terrifying because you hear, like, you watch movies all the time of like people setting this kind of scenario up and it's a trap. Like, you know what I mean? It's crazy. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Like, yeah, that person could think, shit, this is a trap, or I'm gonna drive off in case there's someone hiding in the bush and then they're gonna get me.
That's what I mean.
Or
like a trap.
is it, okay, I've seen them, I'm gonna go get help, drive off and get help rather than just stay here and help them.
That could
Because that
also.
might be.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's sad that they drove off, but at the same time, like, it's just,
Yeah.
you have to put yourself in that scenario. Like,
Mhm.
if I was alone in the middle of the, you know, wherever they are, like, it's just kind of deserted. I
Yep.
don't know if I would get out
Yeah.
if I seen that.
Mhm.
But if I was with people, I'd probably be more inclined.
Yep.
Anyway, it's so scary either way. So, the car drives off, but thankfully, a second car was not far behind.
Mhm.
And when they slowed down and saw the horrifying scene in front of them, they immediately got out of the car to help Alison. The car was filled with a group of friends who were holidaying in Port Elizabeth. 20-year-old Tian Ellard was the first to approach Alison. He runs over to her, he gets down on the ground beside her, and he grabs her hand.
What's his name?
Tian?
And what was the killer's name, or the other guy?
Tian's, it's, I'm saying it as, like, I'm pronouncing it as I'm reading it.
They're not the same name.
They're not the same
Okay,
name.
yep.
It's Franz and Tiaz, and then this is Tian.
What time in the morning is this now?
It's still after 3. I'll get to that.
Okay.
So yeah, he runs over to Alison. He gets down on the ground beside her. He grabs her hand, and he tells her, like, her eyes are like bloodshot and whatever. But he's like, you have nice eyes, like, you're beautiful. He puts something on top of her because she's naked, like, to keep her warm. I think it's his own shirt, and just comforts her like the best he can.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, this must be so surreal to him because he's only 20 years old.
Yeah.
Like, he's so young. So now, thankfully, one of Tian's friends happened to have a cell phone, which at the time was rather new technology. Not everybody had one. So, like, how lucky that one of his friends did.
1994, did you say?
Yeah, it was like, if you had money, you had a cell phone.
Yeah.
That's kind of
like the big ones, because I don't remember
the big
phones
ones, yeah.
around to like 2002, 2003 is when I had my first phone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah. So they called for emergency services, and the nearest hospital was about 15 minutes away, but an ambulance wouldn't arrive until 40 minutes later. Alison is still awake. She can't speak. She's covered in blood, and Tian noticed the ambulance isn't really driving as fast as he thinks that it could be, and he almost feels like they've already decided that Alison isn't going to make it. Like, there's no urgency there.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time Alison arrives at the hospital...
So did the ambulance end up getting her, or did they take her in?
The ambulance arrives 40 minutes later.
Okay,
but then,
so it did arrive 40 minutes. Yep.
Tian feels like they're not really... There's no urgency.
Oh.
He feels like they've decided this girl's not going to make it.
Okay.
Anyway, so by the time Alison arrives at the hospital, so think about, like, everything that she's gone through.
Yep.
It has only been 90 minutes since she was first taken from outside of her apartment.
Only 90 minutes?
Yes. And it took 40 minutes for the ambulance to come.
Whoa. Okay, so it's all... Okay, yeah, everything's happened super quick.
Very
She's got
quickly.
attacked, and it wasn't like she was passed out for a while.
No.
When he came, she was attacked.
She didn't pass out. No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shit, that's so lucky that there was people at whatever time that would have been, 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
driving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yep.
So when the doctors first see
I wonder if it was
Alison...
dark. Would it obviously been dark there, or do they have like, does the sun get up super early there? Maybe it was dark.
No, it was dark. It was in the morning.
Yeah. Okay.
She's seen the headlights on the
that's
car.
right. Yeah.
So when the doctors first see Alison, they are absolutely horrified at her injuries. Like, it is unfathomable that someone could inflict this much damage onto another human life.
Mm-hmm.
Alison's throat laceration went from ear to ear, and her trachea windpipe had been cleanly cut through, and she was breathing through a gaping hole just above her collarbone. She had multiple stab wounds in her chest and in the lower section of her abdomen. She had multiple stab wounds over her lower stomach and pubic area, and she had been completely disemboweled. Her intestines were on the outside of her tummy, full of sand, charcoal, and what looked like to be like fat. Her wounds in her stomach were so deep that it became evident to the doctors that if Alison was to survive, she more than likely would not ever be able to carry children. Like, she was hurt. Dr. Dmitry Angelov and Dr. Cummins were the two doctors who worked on Alison. The surgery was very meticulous. Dr. Angelov delicately cleaned Alison's wounds by hand scrubbing her intestines, getting rid of every bit of debris and dirt before putting it back in her body and sewing her back together. Dr. Cummins stayed on the intensive care unit with Alison for the remainder of the day once she came out of surgery to watch her and make sure she was okay. And it was a real miracle that she had survived.
How did they not get... So with the cut from ear to ear, they must have somehow missed the main artery.
Yeah, so they missed, I don't know how, but they missed all of the main arteries that keep her blood flowing to her body. There was like one, like if they had gotten it, she would have died in like 3 minutes, but they missed it. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, the doctor stayed with her. Like he wanted to make sure she was okay. Like it was a real miracle that she had survived, and he wasn't about to let that miracle go to waste. So later that day, 2 uniformed police officers came to see Alison, and with them they had a folder of photos with offenders in it. And they showed it to Alison, and using her hands to point, she was not only able to ID Franz and Tiers by pointing, but she was able to write their names down on a piece of paper as well. And that satisfied the police officers, and they left.
So hang on, the police came in and they already had images of people who they thought possibly could have done this, like offenders in the area. Okay.
Yeah.
That's lucky.
Yeah. Well, the doctors reported a rape.
Okay. Yep.
Sorry. So like obviously the doctors reported a rape to the police, and then the police came with like offenders. Like
okay. Yep.
Yeah, they worked quickly. So that satisfied police officers. They left. A few hours later, the same officers returned to speak with Dr. Cummings, and they explained to him that they had been in contact with the chief prosecutor, who had indicated to them that the prosecution case would be far stronger if Alison would verbalize the names of the 2 suspects. And Dr. Cummins was horrified at that. Alison currently had a tube down her throat into her lungs, helping her breathe.
She can't speak right now?
Yeah, so not only was he worried that she wouldn't be able to breathe if he pulled this tube out, but he was also worried that she might like not even be able to speak, or that they would damage all of the hard work that had been done the night before.
Yeah. She freaking wrote their names down, didn't she?
Yeah. How was that not enough?
Yeah.
So Dr. Cummings went to Alison, and he explained to her what the police were asking and what would like be involved in that. And Alison wrote down, "Take it out." She wanted them to pay for what they had done, and she didn't come this far just to come this far. Dr. Cummings removed the tube, and Alison's first words were, "That's wonderful." Like it felt good to have that out.
Okay.
She then said, "My attackers were Franz and Tiens," so she could speak. So Franz and Tiens were no strangers to the police, and they were arrested quite quickly.
Absolute scum.
And brought into the station. The detective working Alison's case tells them that they're being charged with attempted murder, and Franz was like, "Why attempted murder?" And the detective says to him, "Because Alison's alive." And this rocks Franz, because he knows what state he left Alison in and what they did to her. He's in shock, and he says to the detective, "Well, then there's nothing I can hide from you, because she will tell you everything that happened anyway." He then pulls a ring off of his finger and hands it to the detective and says, "That belongs to Alison."
Oh, what a fucking
It even had her blood on it still. Alison's recovery was not that of an easy one. When she was finally released from hospital, she had to return every single day to treat her injuries, particularly the one in her lower abdomen. Every day they would have to scrape the wound until it bled to encourage cell growth. Alison was in pain all day and all night throughout her recovery. She had to have cosmetic surgeries to help with the scarring. Her recovery was not just a physical one, it was also an emotional one too.
Yeah.
As well as healing from the attack on her, she was also mentally preparing for a trial against her attackers.
Yep.
But Alison was determined to give whatever she had to put Franz and Tiens behind bars so that they could never do this to a woman again.
As if that wasn't enough to get them behind bars. Anyway.
Well, you have to testify.
Yeah.
I think it depends on whether they plead guilty or not guilty. Like if they plead not guilty, you have to prove their guilt in a trial. So it would soon be discovered that Alison was actually the 3rd victim of Franz and Tiens. The first 2 women...
How long?
Not that long. Very small space. The first 2 women were raped by both men, but let go and told not to tell police. But both of the women did report the rapes, and so that's when they decided that whoever they raped next, they were going to kill.
Okay, so they didn't kill the other ones, they just raped, let go.
Yeah, but they both ended up going to police to report the rape. So they were like, well, this isn't working.
Yep.
We're going to have to kill the next one. So in March of 1995, so just about 4 months after the attack.
Man, that's so long after. That's shit. Were they in custody during this time? Like still
Yeah,
in
they're in jail,
Yeah,
but like the detectives have to build a case. Yeah. So Alison was due to identify her attackers in person. And during this time, the way that they did this was by making victims place their hand on the shoulder of their attackers.
What?
Can you believe that? That's what they used to do back then.
That's
so they would stand in a line and she would have to go and put her hand on their shoulder.
Not just say it's him.
No.
Touch him.
On the shoulder. That was the practice. But the detective was like, I cannot make this woman do this. Like, after everything she's already been through, I cannot do that to her.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's torture.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so for the first time ever, the decision was made to use a one-way mirror. Alison stood behind the mirror and the lineup was on the other side. She could see them, but they couldn't see her. And even behind the glass, like with police, Alison was still terrified. But she successfully identified both men. And this way of identifying perps would become the new normal and a very common practice today.
So it was only back then, 1995, where they decided to have the one-way mirror that you see like in all the movies and everything.
In South Africa.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that was a worldwide thing. The way that this detective explains it, it sounds like he was the first to do it.
Yeah.
But that's what they used to do in South Africa.
Hectic in South Africa. I've heard some crazy things about South Africa.
Yeah, it's
a
a very
African
beautiful,
people who have moved over and
dangerous country.
You can't walk the streets there.
Yeah, we have friends that have a very terrifying story from South Africa.
Yeah, we do. Okay, yep. So
anyway.
she points them out.
So before they went to court, the detective says to Franz and Tienz, just so you know, I'm not going to handcuff you when we go to court, like when we go to trial. And they're like, why? And he says, because I want you to run. It would make my day if you run,
so
because I will shoot you and I will kill you.
See, that's what I think. That's a good detective or police officer. I wouldn't be able to be a police officer. This is the reason I couldn't be a police officer, because I would instantly just want to end someone who was doing the wrong thing. That's why I would be not a good police officer.
No. So they went to court, never handcuffed ever, and they never run. They never ran.
Because they knew they would have got shot.
Yeah, because he was ready. Franz and Tienz were sentenced to life in prison in 1995. The judge noted on their record that he regarded them as a threat to society and that he never wanted them to be released from prison. This is something that he had never done before and something he had never done again after. Franz's father actually couldn't fathom or deal with what his son had done, and 3 years later he committed suicide.
Oh, that's sad.
Really sad. After the trial, Alison moved back in with her mother, and her mother welcomed this. She loved caring for Alison and looking after her. I can imagine when you come that close to losing your child that you would never want to let them out of your sight again, even at that age. But Alison would soon succumb to her trauma and fall into a depression. She stopped going to work, she stopped caring about herself and about anything really, until one day when she was home alone thinking, she started to think about her attack again, and more specifically, the moment during her attack when she told herself that this wasn't the end of her story, that she wanted to live. She chose life in that moment. She promised herself that she was going to choose life again.
Yep.
Shortly after Alison was invited to speak at a local club and to share her inspiring story and experience. Alison had a fear of public speaking, but she didn't want to disappoint anyone, so she went and she told her story, and to her surprise, she loved it. She felt better after sharing her experience. It made her feel good, and she wanted to do it again, and she did, again and again and again. Alison says the talks gave her direction, a cause, a purpose. She started a new business, and she was able to heal from her experience. She was invited to travel all over the world, meeting incredible people while sharing her story, and she loved every minute of it. Alison went on to write a book about her ordeal and recovery called I Have Life. She also recounted her horrific experience and an incredible recovery in a documentary called Alison in 2016, which you guys can watch on Amazon Prime or Apple TV. In that same year, the film became the first South African film to be selected for the Los Angeles-based film festival, Dances with Films. In 2017, it also received the Best Documentary of the African Continent Award at the Africa Magic Viewers' Choice Awards held in Lagos. I didn't write it down, so I don't know why I didn't write it down, but I know this, and I don't know the specifics, so sorry. But at some point, France, like during her like, you know, tour or whatever, France actually like tries to take her for her earnings off like the sales of her book
while he's in prison.
Yep.
So he hears, fuck that. What do you mean?
Because
is he trying to say, if I never did this
I
to you, you would have a story to tell?
Yes.
Fuck
exactly
that guy.
that. It gets denied.
Fuck, I wish he ran.
Can you believe that?
I can't
the
believe.
audacity of him to be like, you owe me money because I'm the reason that you have this life.
I hope it just got like dismissed.
Yeah, it didn't come to fruition. Yeah, I don't know the details, but I do know that happened. So Alison Botha is no doubt an extraordinary individual. She serves as a beacon of inspiration and resilience for countless people across the globe. Her life story is one of remarkable courage and strength in the face of unimaginable adversity. Despite enduring a harrowing ordeal, she emerged as a symbol of hope, reminding us all that human spirit is capable of triumphing over the darkest of circumstances. Alison's unwavering determination and refusal to be defined by her past are a testament to her determined spirit. Her journey is a reminder that even in the depths of despair, there is a glimmer of light that can lead us towards transformation and empowerment. Through her resilience and profound optimism, Alison Botha ignites the belief that we too possess the power to overcome any obstacle and create a brighter future for ourselves and those around us. Her story will forever resonate, inspiring us to embrace life's challenges with unwavering strength and unwavering hope. She is an inspiration to many, including her 2 sons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Kids?
She was able to have 2 children.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I thought you'd like that. That's at the end.
Cool. Why you make me cry?
Well, and while originally this is where I plan to end our story, I do have an unfortunate update.
Oh.
And one that none of us are going to be happy about, including poor Alison, whose biggest fear since her attackers were imprisoned in 1995.
Get out.
Franz and Tiens were released from prison on parole just 2 weeks ago.
Get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
How?
Because they served their life sentence.
So it wasn't
a life sentence.
Wasn't a proper life sentence. It was
life
just 25
sentence
years.
is only 25 years. So if they, when someone gets sentenced to life, that's 25 years.
So I thought it was 25 to life, that's it. You're in there for life.
Mm-mm.
Man, that's hectic.
So they.
How old would they be now? At least
25 and 19. They were young. They were so young. So like
50 and 40 something.
Something like that, yeah. They have been admitted into the system of community corrections where they are expected to comply with a specific set of parole conditions and will be subjected to supervision for the rest of their natural lives. But they are out and they are free. And she is terrified. But like one of her fears is that they'll get out and come back for her because of she's not the reason they're in jail. They're the reason they're in jail, but in their minds, she's the reason that she's in jail. She's also had this incredibly successful story post-traumatic event. You know, she's made a career out of this. She's turned it around and made it a positive thing in her life while they've sat in jail. So I can imagine that has some kind of negative impact on their brains. But anyway, crazy, right?
Oof. Very crazy, man. The system's messed up. I just don't know how you can let someone out after doing that.
I don't know either.
Murder, attempted murder, that needs to be life.
I agree. Especially to that extent. Yeah. They stabbed her to the point of like her head was off her body almost. Her stomach was on the ground. That is a violent crime.
But you say they're going to be supervised for the rest of their life. What does that mean? Like, are they in a
community? To me, that means nothing because who was on parole when they attacked 2 girls in their home in one of our previous podcast episodes.
That's right. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He escaped from that thing.
It means nothing to me.
Mm.
Anyway, that is factual though. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, I tried to find out where they were, what they're doing, but there's nothing, because this only happened 2 weeks ago. Like, it's fresh as. So I don't know, but I'll keep you guys updated if I can find out. But that was today's episode. A nice survivor story.
Well, not a nice survivor story.
Not a nice one, but
survivor story, great, but not nice. It's hectic.
Oh yeah, her story is insane. I definitely recommend the Alison documentary, because she's in it, like it's her voice and she's telling the story. It's kind of, it's made like she's telling a fairy tale story.
Mm-hmm.
So she's made it like her story kind of thing. So yeah, it was interesting to watch. So I would recommend that. But anyway, that's it from us. And as always, we'll catch you guys next Wednesday. Thanks for listening.
Tell me next week.
Bye, darlings.